If you, as the CEO leader, show your vulnerability by being able to say, I am practicing dumbassery. It's truly only one thing. I am brave enough to show you that I don't know everything and I need help. That's the superpower of dumbassery.
Welcome to Encouraging Leaders, a podcast that exists to remind CEOs and aspiring CEOs that you are not alone and don't have to lead that way. I'm Mark D. Braun, and today I am joined by an incredibly special guest, Garry Ridge. Garry is a coach and mentor of mine and to so many other leaders around the world. He has built one of the most respected brands in the world, WD-40, over a 25-year period as CEO. He's now chairman emeritus, and he has just written a book that I think has the power to change the world. I have read many, many good business books, but this one speaks to me so clearly and says what I could do as a CEO to build something of lasting value. It's called Any Dumbass Can Do It in Aussie humor, and I cannot wait to dive in and talk to Garry about it. Garry, welcome to the show.
Hey, g'day, Mark. It's great to be with you. And thank you for giving me the credit. But, if it wasn't for the great group that I led and the power of dumbassery, we would never have done that.
Well, every great leader builds a team, and you call it a tribe, that is behind them and actually doing the work, adding the value, creating that brand.
Yes, absolutely. The sooner we learn that we will tire ourselves out if we think we're going to be the ultimate micromanager, the better we'll be.
I've heard you speak about micromanaging and the painful process that can look like. It's not scalable. It doesn't work. And so you've scaled a brand to, it's known in 179 countries. You have people on the ground in 19 countries, WD-40
Correct.
does? Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, about 19 countries there are people on the ground.
And to be able to have a consistent product brand across those countries is a feat that many, many fail at. But what this book is about, more so than a product brand, is an employment brand. How do you build a tribe of humans that are all employed under the same brand who want to come to work and thrive?
Absolutely. It's based on a simple statement by a very wise person, Aristotle. Pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work. And our job as leaders is to put pleasure in the job. A lot of people, unfortunately, think, Mark, that pleasure in the job is pizza parties, popcorns, and pool tables. It's not. It's pretty simple. Do I belong? Do I matter? And can I make choices? And those three simple foundations are what it takes to build a great culture. But I often say it's simple, not easy.
Well, yeah, and I know that you share some of the learning moments. You call them learning moments in this book. Ken Blanchard writes the foreword. You are sharing how you've learned from him. He's sharing learning. I just think about the learning that's happening and shared across this. Tell me about learning moments, where they came from. Why do you call it the foundation of building this culture?
Well, we talk about it in the book with work Amy Edmondson does as well. One of the key elements of a great culture is trust. You call it psychological safety if you want to, but do people feel a lack of fear? And if you think about it, the word failure isn't doesn't really motivate me very much, but it is
Mm-hmm.
actually the thing that builds entrepreneurialism and success. And WD-40 is a very, very great example of that. Back in 1953, the company was called Rocket Chemical Company, had 5 employees in a little office in San Diego. There was a problem with the umbilical cord of the Atlas space rocket. It had condensation and corrosion that was forming, and they wanted a solution. So the couple of chemists got together and started to mess around with, could we solve the problem? Well, Formula One didn't work, and 5 didn't work, and 20 didn't work, and 25 didn't work, and 30 didn't work, and 32 didn't work. And thank goodness 39 didn't work either, because number 40 did. So
Mm.
WD-40 was born, water displacement 40th formula. And if you think about it, there were 39 learning moments that happened before they got to that wonderful formula. But the formula was built on every one of those learning moments because each one was a progression to get to the end. So when I was doing my master's degree in leadership back in the year 2000, and that's where I met Ken Blanchard, we talked about fear and we talked about, well, if a key element of an organization is having a learning culture, why don't we start talking about these events as learning moments? And why don't we talk about the positive and negative learning moments? So The definition of a learning moment is a positive or negative outcome of any situation that needs to be openly and freely shared to benefit all people. So if you have a
Mm.
positive learning moment, share it, because there are other people, in 40's case, in 19 offices around the world, that may find value in what you just learned. And if
Yeah.
it's a negative learning moment, share it, because someone might be trying to solve the same problem somewhere else and maybe you got them sooner. And the leader's job is to reward and applaud both the positive and negative of the learning moment.
I'm going to restate it. The leader's job is to applaud and celebrate both the learning from the positive results and from the negative outcome results. And what are you actually celebrating when you're celebrating? Because you're not celebrating the negative result. What are you celebrating whenever you're doing that?
The trust that people have in the organization and their freedom to be able to share. It's interesting too. Let me talk about the trust side of it. When I first introduced this theme to the company back in the early 2000s, I explained it the way I've kind of shared. I heard this, yeah, sure. Yeah, I've been there before kind of comments. So I did a program where I said, okay, I have to really show the tribe that this is real and they are safe. So I said, okay, we're going to have a program for the next 12 months. I want you to email me your positive or negative learning moment. And we're going to have a monthly prize. And at the end of the year, we're going to have a grand prize. And that's going to be a first class trip around the world for you and your partner to visit. At that time, we didn't have 17 offices, we probably had 5. Mark, the first month I got 4 people that emailed me. So what did I do with those 4 people? I made heroes out of them. I put them on stage. I rewarded and I applauded. I couldn't stop talking about how much I loved them being able to share, particularly the negative ones. And the
Mm-hmm.
second month I got, I don't know, 8. And I report and yay. And by the end of the year, I was getting hundreds of emails. But it took that process
Mm-hmm.
to prove that they were safe, because and wow, did we get lots of value out of that sharing. And even today, I know I was listening to an investor call, earnings call, last one I think, with our new CEO Steve Brass, and we had a learning moment. So learning moments are alive and well.
Yeah, I love it. I actually use this in my coaching because you've been teaching me through your writing and through your coaching for a long time. I had a CEO that I was in a coaching call with, and he had made a $300,000 mistake personally, and he was down. He felt ashamed, embarrassed. He was pissed off, mad at himself. And I said, okay, all right. I've watched him, and he treats people well when they bring him learning moments, but he was treating himself horribly. And I said, okay, it's a $300,000 mistake. Okay. I said, what would the organization have to learn from this mistake? What would you have to learn? And what would the organization have to learn from this learning moment to make $300,000 a small price to pay for that?
Hmm.
He's a growth oriented CEO. And so he started to put it on his learning hat. He started to put it on his teaching hat. He said, I have to share this. I have to learn. I have to teach people how I made it so that they cannot make the same mistake again. I just think that's what I hear in your heart is just you've got to get that fear out in our own mistakes as well.
And honestly, Mark, it is the core of dumbassery. Because if you, as the CEO leader, show your vulnerability by being able to say, I am practicing dumbassery, which is basically, if you define it, it's truly only one thing. I am brave enough to show you that I don't know everything and I need help. That's
It's
that's the superpower of dumbassery.
I just would love for you to repeat that because I need to hear it over and over and over in my own life. What is the superpower of dumbassery for you?
It's the comfort and what I share that I don't know and I need help and from the people around me.
Yeah,
And which is so true.
the
Yeah.
courage and bravery that comes from a leader that says, I actually made this mistake. It's hard for me to share it, and I'm willing to do it because I need us for all of us to learn from it. That courage, that bravery is the superpower of dumbassery.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be the mistake. It can be just in a situation. I remember, you know, and it's in the book, an early meeting I had in San Diego. I'd probably only arrived from Australia for a few months. And at that time, I was not CEO, and I don't think I was even seen to be the next CEO. I was leading our international expansion program because that's why I moved here. And I was sitting in a meeting, and there was a consultant presenting to us, and there was about 10 people in the room. And I'm sitting there, and this consultant is presenting, and what's going through my head is, I can't join the dots here. I'm not sure what you're saying. I don't know where you're going. I mean, you're confusing me. And what's going through my mind is, shut up, Gary. You just arrived here. If you say you don't know, everybody in this room will think you're a dumbass. Don't say anything about. Anyhow, I got to the stage where I just, what I'm like sometimes. I just can't hold myself back, and I went, "Excuse me, not long in this country. I have no idea what you're talking about. Help me, please." And everyone in the room, Mark, went, "That's the power of dumbassery." Because what I put at risk there was people in the room thinking that I was a dumbass. What I put out there is I can be pretty comfortable admitting I don't know. And I've often shared, and you've heard me say it, the three most powerful words I've ever learned in my life: I don't know.
Yeah, because it shows the courage to lead in an area where you aren't the expert. It shows the willingness to put yourself out there and expose yourself to risk. It shows all of the leadership characteristics of saying, if you're going to be in a leadership position, there's no way we can know everything because we've never been there.
Correct. And we don't know everything. It's an old saying, but if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah, I have to tell on myself because the first part of my life, I felt like I needed to be the smartest guy in the room. And I worked really hard to prove it. And it started to not work. As the team sizes grew, I started to go, holy cow, I'm not smart enough to figure this out. And I started to fail at leadership because it was a detriment. My intellectual horsepower was actually costing me instead of gaining me trust.
I know.
And so there's so many people out there listening right now that have that. They're very, very bright human beings. They've been working on problem solving and fixing things for a long time, and they're very gifted at it. The problem is it runs out of capacity. There's no way to keep on leading that way as your teams increase. There's no way to have 19 countries and you be the smartest person in the world. You can't do it.
No. And I'll tell you another story, which is a beautiful story, and it's a great example. I was in India, and we were traveling on a bus, actually, that had a bunch of people in it. And I was traveling with a colleague. And anyhow, there was someone on the bus that we knew a lot about this Indian market. So we were sitting with them, and we started talking to them. And the colleague I was with started sharing how much he knew about India. Now, what he knew about India, I know, was this much. And I kicked him and I said, "Shut up. I know what you know. We want to know what he knows."
Yeah.
So and unfortunately, once we start to kind of verbalize and boast about what we know, the other person shuts down and says, "Well, then I don't." But I wanted to know I want to know what's in that other person's head.
Yeah. Yeah, you gain from every interaction because you're actually open to learning from them because you actually believe they know things that you need to know. It's
And
a superpower.
the great thing about the superpower, it's simple. Shut up and listen.
Well, I appreciate it. I needed to hear it all the time. I want to talk a little bit about values. There's a unique piece of the book that talks about the power of values. There's lots of writing on values. Everyone in the audience who's listening knows the power of writing down your values and making sure that you're living by them. You have a unique perspective on this, and I want to bring it up. It's called hierarchical values. Tell me about that. Why is it so powerful, and how do you know?
This is one of the greatest gifts Ken Blanchard ever gave me. When we were putting our company values together, I was fortunate enough to have Ken alongside, and he helped us go through the process. And he said, "Now you need to make these values hierarchical, which means you need to make the first value, or the one that's most important to you, more powerful than the last value." And I said, "Why, Ken?" He said, "Because you don't want people cherry picking a value depending on the situation." Now, at WD-40 Company, our first value was we value doing the right thing. Our second value was we value creating positive, lasting memories. There were three others. The last one was we value sustaining the WD-40 economy. And the WD-40 economy value was about profitability. Initially it said faster, more faster growing profits, and it was wrong because we said what we want to do is a vibrant economy serves all the constituents. And it
Mm-hmm.
was so true that there were many instances where people could have gone to the profit decision versus what was doing the right thing, and doing the right thing simply. There's a great story about, a person in our supply chain that had a decision where they could have saved the company $4 million. And the story I tell is, you're going to run upstairs, Mark, and the CEO is going to promote you because you just put $4 million to the bottom line. However, what you did is you decided not to take that opportunity because it actually violated our second value about creating positive, lasting memories. Because if you used that chemical, you would have had to put a Prop 65 cancer warning on the can. And we said cancer does not create positive, lasting memories. That
Mm.
person got rewarded and applauded for not saving us $4 million.
Yeah, because he followed the values in the right order.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
could, if they weren't hierarchical, he could have gone to the one. Yeah, I just say I use that value, sustain the WD-40 economy. You bet I did. I just put 4 million. We're a public company. Shareholders are going to love us. Yay! Now the great thing about this, I got to use this. As you know, I taught at USD for 16 years, and I taught a class in culture in the master's program there, and I used the values exercise in the class. So I put a case study together that had a lot of twists and turns in it. And I divided the class into three groups. And the first group had a set of hierarchical, clearly defined values. The second group had a set of values, but they weren't hierarchical. And the third group, you're free to do anything you like. Okay, you got 30 minutes, half an hour, get back in here in half an hour and present your recommendation on the case study. As they left the room, the group that had no values were kind of really excited because you could see that, yeah,
No
yeah,
rules.
no
No rules.
rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do anything I want. When they came back, they were the last group to come back. They had not defined a clearly defined, did not have a clearly defined recommendation. That I could actually, in all cases, you could see some dissent in the group. They weren't as happy
Conflict.
as there were conflict. The first
Yeah.
group back was the one with a clearly defined set of hierarchical values with a very, very succinct recommendation that covered all the twists and turns in the organization and reasons why they made those decisions. The
Yeah.
group in the middle came back. They kind of nearly got there, but they spent a lot of time talking about which one is more important than the other.
Yeah, because values can conflict. Values can be in conflict. I mean, you have a do the right thing and economy, and those are in conflict sometimes. But if you
Absolutely.
know which one goes first and which one goes second, that can make the decisions faster.
Yeah. So if you have a clearly defined set of values in your organization, congratulations. If they're not hierarchical, I guarantee you that you are having more churn in your organization than you need. If you have none at all, you're really in a problem state. But if you want clearly defined decisions and you want people to actually build trust amongst themselves, it's important.
For me, the key takeaway that I love on that story, you've got three teams. One team has no values identified, one values are identified, and the other one has hierarchical values. Decision making is faster, conflict is lower, and outcomes are better. And so you think about growth in your businesses. If you're listening to this, capture this. Decision making speed and team alignment around those decisions is such a powerful growth engine. And anything you do that decreases speed of decisions and makes the decisions have to be more complex and slows them down will cost you dollars to the bottom line. They will cost you everything. It will cost you growth. And so, simple change, put them in order, make that decision at the leadership team level, the CEO and group, so that you can say, this is our order, and then help celebrate people who can make decisions around those.
Mark, one of your superpowers is taking all of my blah, blah, blah and turning it into an actionable statement. That's a superpower of yours.
Man, I appreciate that. I have been following you for a long time, and I just think about the fact that I have to learn more and more. I was on with our team, our internal team this morning. We were in a daily meeting, and I was reading some things that I'm going to read to this audience from your book. It's on page 134. And it's your engagement numbers. First of all, if you're listening, the average engagement numbers in the US is 32%. As a country, we are actually above the rest of the world. Capitalism works, economy, market, free market economy works. 32%, if you're proud of it, great. Best practice organizations are at 76% in the US. So if you're a best practice CEO, you can get to 76%. I'm going to read Garry Ridge's engagement numbers across 19 countries, 179 countries that they participate in. I love to tell people that I work for WD-40 Company. 98% of Gary's tribe members, his employees, said yes. They'd love to tell people. I am excited about WD-40 Company's future direction. 94% of the employees, the tribe members inside of Gary's organization, said they love and are excited about the future direction. I know what results are expected of me. 96%. I feel my opinions and values are a good fit for the WD-40 culture. 97% of the employees around the world said yes. I respect my leader. They are called coaches inside of the system. I respect my coach. 97% of the people around the world. Gary, that gives me chills. I think about the amount of skill that you built into the leaders around the world to lead at a level that would get their people respecting them and answering yes to those questions. My team, internally encouraging leaders, our goal is to give that to other humans. We want encouraging leadership to be everywhere. We want people growing and thriving, and you built it around the world.
And you know why it's important? Imagine a place where you go to work every day. You make a contribution to something bigger than yourself. You learn something new. You're protected and set free by a compelling set of values, and you go home happy. Happy people create happy families. Happy families create happy communities. Happy communities create happy countries. Happy countries create a happy world. We need a happier world, and business has the opportunity and responsibility to do something to make that happen, because governments won't do it, churches won't do it, institutions won't do it, business can do it. So, the leaders who are listening to us today, if you want to make a difference in the world for those that are going to come after you, start today in the organizations you lead by ensuring you're building a culture where people know and feel like they belong, know and feel like they matter, and know they can make choices which encourage them and give them a sense of trust and safety.
We could definitely end there. It's such a powerful statement. I have dedicated my life to that work because I believe it's the best chance that I have to make an impact in the world. You have dedicated your life to that work because I can hear it coming through the screen that you believe it's the best chance to make an impact in this world. Governments are not going to solve this. You mentioned a single religion is not going to solve this. Businesses around the world and business leaders have the chance to make a dent in this and to work towards solving this, and it's worthy. I want to acknowledge that a lot of people, when they hear make a loving culture, when they hear make a belonging culture, when they hear that leaders need to do more for their people, they hear a single side of responsibility. And you have a unique way to think about responsibility and accountability inside your organization. I'm going to bring you to the Maniac Pledge because I want our listeners to hear it. I'm happy to read it, or if you'd like it, if you've got it in front of you, I'm going to read it to you. I am responsible for taking action, asking questions, getting answers, and making decisions. I won't wait for someone to tell me. If I need to know, I'm responsible for asking. I have no right to be offended that I didn't get this sooner. If I'm doing something others should know about, I'm responsible for telling. For me, tell me about the power of individual responsibility built into a culture where the leaders are designing systems to build pleasure into the work. Tell me about the part about individual responsibility, because I think people can miss that.
Yeah, and the pledge is a balance of accountability and responsibility. What am I going to be held myself and others accountable for? And the pledge is really the antidote for there's there's a pandemic in organizations of a disease. I think you know it. It's called the na disease, the finger pointing disease, right?
Yeah.
And this is the vaccine against the finger pointing disease that really does put the responsibility at the feet of the person that can do something about it. Very powerful in the organization when we talked about, someone runs up, I should have known about this. Why didn't someone tell me? Well, You knew you should know about it. You know who had the answer. Go ask. Or are you just waiting to go, nah, 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 I want to point a finger at someone? I want to get just back. I want to touch on another point too that I think is really, really powerful. It was only yesterday where I was part of a conversation where there was a person who was sharing emotionally how upset they were at poor leadership in their organization. The conversation probably went for 45 minutes. This person works for an organization where the leadership is toxic, and they came home from work in an upset state because of very poor leadership. That upset state then influenced the whole household. So, how many people are leaving organizations of the people that are listening to us today and going home in a state where it's actually having a negative impact on their families? I'm going to tell you a lot,
A lot.
a lot. And it's up to us as leaders to change that.
Yeah, because we can actually leave, they can leave stronger than they came in. I think about the COVID time you've covered in your book, the number of people who were already feeling more safe at work than by other leaders out there, because at least at work, they were told that this is how we're going to act. And it was clearer at work. But that survey numbers, those were actually during COVID, correct?
Yeah, twice. We took them just before COVID, and then in January of 2021, I said to our leadership group, I want to make sure we're not draining cultural equity because of what's going on right now. So let's go out and do a pulse. And we went out and did a pulse survey, and the numbers came back in line. But there was one number that just blew me away that went up, and it was the one that was aligned with I feel excited about the company's safe and excited about the company's future. And it went up. And I
Yeah.
said, that can't be true. There's a flaw in the information here. Go find out why. It's January 2021. There's no sign yet that we have a clear path out of this. The vaccinations aren't out there. We're still, what's going up? So we went out and we asked, and it was true. And then when we asked why, the answer just absolutely floored me. It brought tears to my eyes. I feel safe is with the answer that came back. There's no other place I'd want to be right now than here because I feel safe. And I thought, wow, we have delivered.
We have delivered on our brand promise to our employees, our employee brand promise. We have acted consistently with our values. They're hierarchical in nature. We've held to them. We haven't diverted while we're going through this crazy world calamity. You stayed true to your values, and they saw that. You've mentioned in the book that the real testing, the real growth ground for leadership is in the times of uncertainty, the messy middle, that time whenever you're there. Talk to me about what you found in your own leadership in D40 or in your own life about that.
Exactly. I talk about um, this, the recombobulation zone. There's a
Yeah.
lovely zone at an air. We get discombobulated, and I describe that as going through the security at the airport when you take your belt off, pants off, whatever it is, and then you come out of there and you're all and there's an airport that has a recombobulation zone, which I thought was absolutely beautiful, where you get a chance to put it all back together. And I think one of the things that I find really powerful is take time to put it back together. I think it's so important. I often say, don't take your leftover self to the next person. As you know, I have if I can find it here, I have a little notebook that I carry around, and on it I have this little chart, and it reminds me, and it says, am I being the person I want to be right now? And why I have this there is if I have interaction with you, Mark, and we go through a lot of stuff, I've emptied some of my plate on you, and you've emptied some of
Yes.
your plate on me. And now I'm going to go and have an interaction with someone else. They don't deserve our leftovers. I need to fill my plate again before I go to you because I owe you the best plate that I can bring to you, the best plate of me. So I have this thing and it says, am I being the person I want to be right now? Then who is that person? And it says, I want to be grateful, caring, empathetic, reasonable, a listener, fact-based. I want to have a balanced opinion. I want to be curious. I want to be a learner. And I want to throw sunshine, not a shadow.
Mm.
Now, I know how important it is for me to remind myself of that Because when I don't remind myself of that, I take my leftovers to people, and people do not deserve leftovers. They deserve the full plate of the person.
I love filling back up your own leadership bucket, the time that you need to do that. Recombobulation zone is a pretty cool word for it. I talk with leaders around the world. Some of them call it prayer, some of them call it meditation, some of them call it pausing, some of them call it reflecting. Whatever it is that you call it, you have a plan for that. You can show people, demonstrate, here's how I do it. I read these words and make sure that I don't have leftover goo on me whenever I go into the next conversation. How we
Absolutely.
show up for those conversations as leaders is so critical. And so I love that you've put it into practical terms. Not surprised at all. You named everybody coaches inside of the organization of Garry Ridge. I mean, of WD-40. Sorry about that. Tell me the power of that. Why did you do it? And what is that? Because that is not normal.
Well, let me give you an example. Mark, you're a new member of the team. You come in the morning. I say, "G'day, Mark. I'm pleased to meet you. I am here to manage you." How do you feel?
Little,
Okay,
small.
Mark. G'day, Mark. Welcome to the team. I'm Garry. I'm your coach. And here's what that means. I know through my experience what it takes to win this game. I'm here for only one reason, and that's to help you play your best game every game. So to do that, I'm going to give you a few things of how I'm going to behave. Number one, I'm going to spend a lot of time on your sideline, which means I'm going to be there for you when you need me. I'm going to be observing your play. I will never run onto your field and kick the ball for you. That's micromanagement, but I will help you kick the best ball ever. I will never, ever, ever go to the podium and take your prize because the prize is yours. And I'm going to tell you one other thing, Mark. I'm going to spend a lot of time in the stinky locker room with you because that's where I find out the things that are really, really driving or not driving us as an organization. Be under no misunderstanding, Mark. The only reason I exist is to help you play your best game. And I'm going to be there for you every day to help you do that. Just know that for sure. That's the difference between a coach and a manager.
Yeah, my feelings are encouraged. I feel like I could go charge the world, and that you've got my back. I feel like I'm going to be resourced. I'm going to know what to do because you're going to be teaching or training me. You're going to be helping me, but it's my job, and I have to step up into it because you're not going to do it for me. That's
Right.
how I
And
feel.
And the other side of the coin, Mark, is I want you to accept these two responsibilities. You're going to be open to receiving feedback from me. And occasionally, we might ask people in the bleachers how you're playing because they might have a point of view as well. Because we have to serve those that are sitting in the bleachers watching the game.
Yeah, it normalizes all of those interactions of feedback and correction and guidance that a coach has to do whenever they're watching a new player that doesn't know their role and that's trying to do things and making mistakes. You call them learning moments, having learning moments, and they can teach them right then. They can share those
Yeah.
with others. Such a powerful decision.
Yeah. And I think probably one of the most powerful chapters in the book is the first one. And you know the title, Are You Okay? Because before anything starts, are we asking people, everybody's going through their own personal hero's journey. And, do we take the time to say, are you okay? What's on your mind? What's getting in your way? Before we dive into the specifics about performance or whatever, let's touch the heart. As Ken Blanchard says, we got to start getting more people in the heart as well as the head.
Yeah, so your simple question of are you okay? A coach listening to the team, sitting in a one-on-one, starts with are you okay? And if they're not, they know that the agenda's changed, right? I remember walking in one day to my executive team, it was the middle of COVID, and I asked all of them to share just a personal reflection on where they're at because lots of things were moving. And they all shared, and it was really hard. Everybody was going through significant challenge. And I think about if I didn't have that information, how would I have been able to lead them? How would I have been able to show up and serve them? How would I have been able to do anything well if I had gone with no information about how they are? Are you okay? Is such a powerful question.
Yeah. We could talk about this for hours because I have other stories about, many ways where we can interact with people, but I'm hoping people will read some of that or listen to some of that.
I think, two things that they can do. One is grab the book. It is a game changer. You can learn all of these things, the learning moments, the methods, the processes, all of the things that Garry learned over a 25-year run of growing an incredible brand around the world. He is sharing with you. I love how you share them. I love the practical nature of them. I love the end of the chapters, the worst idea, the best idea, and the first idea. I love being able to give tactical ways for them to start, for them to feel good about making progress. And then there's one more action. Your website, thelearningmoment.net, is a great one. It's got ways to reach out to you, but it's also got a little place up at the top, a quiz. It's called the Any Dumbass Can Do It quiz. And you can get an idea of where you stand on your dumbassery skills today, and a detailed plan sent to you on how to get better at it. I hope that everybody who's listening will go out, thelearningmoment.net, go out and do that quiz. I know that for me, I had to learn it hard. I had to learn it over and over sometimes, is that superpower is there, but I have to learn to access it. And so giving them practical tips to access that.
Yeah. And let me just mention one more thing. The brilliance of the worst first idea comes from my fabulous co-writer, Martha Finney. Martha took my threads of ideas and knowledge and she wove them into this tapestry of learning. So I'm very grateful that I had her alongside in building out this wonderful learning piece. And that was her brilliance. We've got to give people something to do right at the end. So it
That's
was
great.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do love her writing. I love your stories. I love the approachability. And what I love about it is it's not a CEO book. It's a CEO book or an executive book or a leader at any level or an emerging leader book. Anybody that's stepping into people leadership, desiring people leadership, it speaks to any level, and they can actually take it and start and move their own leadership and accelerate their growth. So
my dream would be that professors and teachers who are teaching emerging young leaders in business colleges would give them the book to read, because there's a little bit of a roadmap there.
There's a solid roadmap on impacting the world, making happier places to work and a happier world. And we certainly need a happier world. Garry, thank you so much for spending the time sharing with our members here, the community in St. Louis and beyond. I look forward to watching and pouring in as much as I can to help get these concepts into companies around the world.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for what you do. You make a positive difference in the world every day, and the world's a better place because of you.